published in the New York Post because I was researching the senator's pension situation. And back in 2012, an amendment was made to the Stock Act, which is the law that Congress passed, that Senator Gillibrand authored and sponsored, that forces members of Congress to have to disclose all of their stock holdings and all of the transactions that they do throughout the year. Well, within that piece of legislation, an amendment was filed that made it so that if a member of Congress is ever convicted of a set of different crimes like bribery or acting as a foreign agent, that they can lose all of their benefits that they normally get as being a member of Congress. And so if you look at Menendez's campaign Twitter account, 10 days before he was indicted, his account puts out a tweet, and it's a quote from him that basically says that if you played by the rules and you raised your family right, you shouldn't have to live in old age destitute and poor. And that applies to his pension and his benefits, okay? He clearly feels like whatever he was doing for the United States government or Israel or whoever it is that his constituents are that give him campaign funds to do what he was doing. So he feels like he was doing his job, and he feels like he shouldn't have to lose. He may be found guilty, but he shouldn't have to lose his pension. He shouldn't have to lose his benefits. And so to me, when you look at that situation and you couple that with the fact that he's running as an independent, and all that does in New Jersey is take votes away from the other Democrat, which helps the Republican. And you wonder, why is Menendez doing this? Well, first of all, you can see, as Hank Scheinkoff said in the New York Post piece that I'm quoted in, this is payback from Menendez. He's pissed, and this is payback. But secondly, this positions himself to potentially get a pardon. That's right. That Senate seat in New Jersey could be the seat that flips the Senate from the Democrats and Chuck Schumer to the Republicans in control. So even if Biden wins in November, if the Democrats lose the Senate and let's say a Supreme Court pick comes up, the Republicans control the Senate. They're going to control the nomination of whether or not a pick comes up for the Supreme Court. That's huge, right? So Menendez is potentially putting himself in a position to barter, leaving the race and allowing the Democrats to win for a pardon, or he stays in, takes away as many votes as possible from Andy Kim, and the Republican wins. And now Menendez is asking a Trump who may have won in November for a pardon, right? So it looks like strange bedfellows here, where Menendez may want a Trump victory in November so that he can get a pardon if he's found guilty. And so all this is all potentials, but this allows you to know how Senator Menendez operates. He's a very sophisticated man. My former boss and mentor, Ken Baum, who passed away, he would tell me with prosecutions, especially on the federal level, he was a former prosecutor, that the main thing that defense attorneys want to do is make the case complicated. And the prosecutors want to make it simple for the jury. Well, Senator Menendez's defense team has made that case so complicated that yesterday 2 jurors fell asleep. So I'd say he's got a great defense going for himself. He's layered in some political pressure by staying in this New Jersey Senate race as an independent. And he's applying maximum pressure here for himself. He's a sophisticated pit bull. Like, this guy is no joke. I'm sorry. He's no joke. So it just goes to show, right, what's really happening with this case, where it's at, and just how high stakes it is, and really just how dogged this guy is and how thorough he is. It's kind of hard to believe that his defense is he didn't know any better, knowing how sophisticated he is with this defense and how he's maneuvering politically. It's going to be interesting to see how this turns out. So that's where we're at on the Menendez thing. And of course, once again, I'm quoted in the paper now, and I'm officially an expert, which, wow, it's the first time I've considered or labeled a political expert. You guys got to check out the paper. So going on to other things. So we've got Byron Donalds with his mistake on the race stuff and saying, whatever he said on Jim Crow and black families being in a better position back then than they are now. We also have Trump and his shenanigans in Maryland, which plugs into New Jersey, believe it or not. Just talked about the pardons, but how does Maryland plug into New Jersey? And how is Trump making a mistake in Maryland? Well, Maryland is a seat where a Democrat is stepping away, retiring, and there's an open Senate seat. And the former governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, is running for the Senate seat as a Republican. He's going against a Democrat named Angela Also Brooks. And she's a young upstart candidate. She's in her 40s, an attorney, former prosecutor. She's currently the executive of Prince George's County. She is a rock star of a candidate, man. When she hits the campaign trail in Maryland, the voters of Maryland love her. The politics are in her favor with abortion. Hogan has just a really hard road ahead of him. And he's probably the only Republican who can win in a Democrat state in November. And so you would think that the Trump people would just let him do what he needs to do. Well, Laura Trump over the last weekend, slammed the guy because he said, everyone should respect the verdict coming out of the Trump case before the Trump verdict came down. I think the Trump people were waiting for an excuse to just lay into him. And the reason why they want to lay into him is because they know he's going to end up getting national attention. And he's going to have to break away from the Trump and MAGA movement in order to win that Senate seat in Maryland. He's going to have to go pro-life. He's going to have to oppose Trump on a lot of stuff. And because of that, the Trump people see him as a problem, which is why they're going after him the way they are. But it's a huge mistake. The reason why it's a huge mistake is because they need that Senate seat. The Republicans do. They need it if they want to take over the Senate. The Trump people seem to not care because they're just worried about Trump and raising money and whatever. But that's very important, that Maryland seat. If the Republicans want to take the Senate, especially if Trump doesn't win in November, they need the Senate. Or else you'll have a situation where the Democrats will have the presidency, the House, and the Senate. And so just really short-sighted by the Trump people on what's going on in Maryland. Thinking about their own political endeavors and not thinking about the Republican Party and the overall strategy. And the reason why that's important is because Hogan is a guy who can run for president in 2028. And so the Trump people have opened the door to Hogan being forced to break away from MAGA and actually run a campaign against Trump, where it's going to be a challenge to the Maryland voters to pick who is a better counter to Trump. A rookie upstart in the Democrat in Angela Also Brooks, who when she gets to the Senate will be at the bottom of the barrel with power in D.C., or a seasoned two-time governor of Maryland, who if he gets into the Senate on the Republican side, even though he's new, he will be high ranking and power-wise. Who do the voters of Maryland want? Who will they trust to counter a potential Trump presidency is where Hogan is going to have to go with his campaign. That's the Trump people's fault. If he does that, he might win. And if he wins, he's going to win off of hurting Trump's chances. Big mistake by the Trump people. They don't care. They're obsessed. Fine. That's fine. But they're going to lose because of stuff like this. It's ridiculous. I think Brit Hume said this was stupid. I don't call it stupid, man. This is just, these guys are selfish and they think they know it all and they think they can just run everybody over. Well, it's not a good idea running your own party over, especially in a state like Maryland where you have a chance to take a blue state and you're just going to throw that away. That's what we've got right now, the Trump people. So they're not going to have a good November come November. It's going to be terrible. And I can tell you already by just looking at how they're handling Larry Hogan, what's going to happen going forward with all of these campaigns on the congressional level especially. These candidates are thinking that they're going to be out there running their campaigns, calling donors, asking for money to be contributed to their campaigns, when in fact the Trump people are going to force all of these candidates across the country to do nothing but raise money for Trump 24/7. And there will be nothing coming out of the GOP to candidates throughout the country for any type of support whatsoever. They're not going to get op research support because guess what? The op researchers for the GOP are not that good. They're not going to get monetary support because all the money needs to go to Trump and trial stuff. What's coming in November will be an unmitigated disaster for the GOP. And what it really is, it's going to come down to is it's just a run by the Trump people to try to somehow win by burning every single burnable thing the GOP has to try to get them out of orbit and into the stratosphere and win this presidency. They don't care at this point, and they're going to burn it all. That is a recipe for disaster. The Democrats have been running around worried about things. They've got nothing to worry about because it looks like Trump and his team are going to destroy the Republican Party in an attempt to try to win the White House. I don't know how that works. This will be the first time we've ever seen this happen. I think it's going to be an unmitigated disaster. The Trump people believe this is their path to victory, destroy their own party to win the White House. Okay, we will see. So, this is why what you have is a group of almost like fanatics when it comes to Trump politically. Because you've got guys like Senator Bob Menendez who may need a Trump win to get a pardon. You got a lot of guys like this, right? And so these people are desperate. They'll do whatever it takes to make sure Trump gets in the office. And that's what we're going to see coming into November. But all this desperation isn't going to be at the Democrats. It's going to be pointed towards Republicans. So that's why this is going to be an unmitigated disaster. I can't believe I'm happy. I'm watching it in real time, but it's happening and it's going to happen. Along those lines, we've got Byron Donalds and these other guys who are trying to get in on this train, and they're trying to get in on the Trump thing. And Donalds is trying to become the vice president, whatever. He did the right thing last year on the race issue in DeSantis, because here's the reality on DEI. It's great for a bunch of Wall Street guys who are trying to make money off of charter schools. That's smart to do the anti-DEI stuff, because they use that to try to convince parents that, hey, your kids aren't getting a good education because they're getting DEI stuff or whatever. And so it works politically on that end, but it doesn't work to win elections. It just doesn't. And proof of it is Ron DeSantis' campaign. DeSantis ran a $500 million campaign to become the Republican nominee based on being anti-DEI, being anti-black, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, that's what he ran on. $500 million on it, and he utterly failed. Why? Because DEI isn't something you win elections on. But the problem is the people over there in the Republican Party don't know the difference between an election and the thing you make money off of. To them, it's all the same thing, but it's not. It's not. So proof of this is back last year when Ron DeSantis was running his anti-DEI campaign for president, Byron Donalds came out and nailed him on what he was doing in the public schools here and teaching slavery and trying DeSantis. This is not a fake issue. The DeSantis leadership with the education department in Florida is literally trying to teach students here, kids. I have 3 kids in the public schools here. They're trying to teach our kids that there's more than one view on slavery. That there's the traditional view, which is it was really, really bad. And then there's this other point of view that says, well, it wasn't that bad for certain slaves. And so they feel like, the DeSantis people feel like, hey, that's such an important issue to teach our students that, slavery wasn't all bad, that there were some black people used it to get ahead. Some black people owned slaves, that's important to teach kids. All right, I guess it's important. But what's more important is like teaching them math and how to read. So with that said, you have an issue where DeSantis was wasting government taxpayer money on some boondoggle garbage, anti-DEI garbage that he thought could win him some elections, but it did nothing for him. And as a matter of fact, when Byron Donalds stepped in and called him out and his education department out on trying to highlight something that was so stupid to highlight, it hurt DeSantis and it helped Byron Donalds. As a matter of fact, it helped him rise in prominence. So he had the issue right, Byron Donalds, last year on DEI. And anyone who can look at it, who looks at it politically, can see DEI is a political loser. It just is. So fast forward to this year, and what do you see? Byron Donalds now is trying to become the vice president to Trump. And clearly within the vetting process, his stance, what he did politically to DeSantis last year to hurt DeSantis and to help himself has come up. And so now he's having to try to fix that because apparently the Trump people don't like that he played this thing right back then, that he had enough wherewithal to know that, hey, man, DEI is not an issue you try to win campaigns on. So they're mad that he figured that out. And so he has to reverse his ways and prove, if he wants to be vice president, that he can do the wrong thing politically. And so he does the wrong thing politically. And he goes out there and he says to the world, hey, man, back in those Jim Crow law days, boy, the black family had it better back then. I don't know why they did. It wasn't Jim Crow, but for some reason it was better back then for black families. This is ridiculous. Okay, let's say he's right. For whatever reason, it's still a ridiculous argument to make. This is not something that you win campaigns on. Why would you even want to talk about this? It's stupid politically. He's doing it because he wants to be vice president, and the Trump people want stupid political stuff. They want to see people do dumb things politically because in their minds, it's smart. It's smart to run a anti-DEI campaign for office. It's not. But this is where we are in GOP politics. So here we go with Byron Donalds walking around looking like a fool because he's trying to prove to the Trump people that he's loyal because he can do something politically stupid like some race crap that supposedly wins you races. It does not. And the sad part about it is here the GOP people, the conservatives, are always barking and crying about race. Why are you always bringing up race? But then they're the ones always bringing it up with DEI. So what's wrong? What is going on here? So anyway, hopefully these guys can wake up. They can see what's happening to Byron Donalds and they can realize, hey, man, this DEI stuff is good for us when we're trying to get this school money in our pockets, but it doesn't win campaigns. It has no place in the election season. Get rid of it. Anyway, it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch. With that said, sorry for being upset, but I see how much money they're spending, and I'm like, man, you're going to spend $500 million on DEI? Why? And then after this guy DeSantis burned $500 million on anti-DEI, it didn't work. Byron Donalds comes out here and says, let's talk about Jim Crow and the black family back in the day. Seriously, this is Trump madness. That's the only way to explain this, right? Is that this is what the Trump people want because they're putting on a reality show for Trump. That's the only thing I can figure on this. And it's ridiculous. They're going to lose elections because of this, but they don't care because they're putting on the show for Big Daddy, I guess. Anyway, that's about it for today for me. We're going to be looking at what's happening with Menendez going forward. We're also going to be looking more at Byron Donalds, and what's up there. And of course, we're going to keep looking at the Trump race, especially that Maryland race, because I can't wait to see what Angela Alsobrooks does. I think she's just an up and coming superstar politically, and it's great to see for America that we have really good candidates like that and really good races like the one in Maryland, because either way it goes, it's a win-win for the people of Maryland and it's a win-win for the country. So either one, if Hogan wins, it's great for America, it's great for Maryland. If Angela Alsobrooks wins, it's great for America, it's great for Maryland. This is great. So that's one of the best races of the year. And I think however that goes will let you know how the rest of the politics will go for both parties. That's the race to watch, in my opinion. So with that said, I am out. Please have a great weekend. I'm out from here in South Florida. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you for watching. The few people who are, and hopefully you can take from it what you may. But I will say this. Keep watching what I'll be posting, because looking at politics through this lens of public documents and analyzing them and looking at like Bob Menendez's pension potentially and his maneuvers at running as an independent and connecting the dots, it's a much more fruitful way to view politics. It also gives you a better understanding. It gives you some power and some control over what you are viewing and what you're reading. You're not running all over the place. You kind of know what's going on. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is just give a baseline politically through public documents of what's going on out there, so that all of the misinformation and disinformation can kind of just fall by the wayside or roll right off your back like water off of a duck's back. All right, guys, have a great weekend. It was a pleasure. Thank you.